Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Alan Weissenbacher. In the past, I've been directing teaching in small groups here at 360 Church. And this morning, I want to talk about expectations. Welcome everyone back from the holidays. And how many of you had expectations for the holidays that clashed with reality? They often do. I think of when I try to make a really nice reindeer cookie. You saw it online, it looked beautiful, you try to make it, it melts in the oven and it strains a little blob and it comes out. I made a Christmas demon cookie. Or New Year's morning, I wake up at 7 because my preschooler wakes up at 7. He always wakes up at 7, no matter when he goes to bed. So we wake up at 7 and I just think, my devious mind, we sing carols at Christmas. Maybe we should try singing carols on New Year's morning and spread the joy of the Lord. I thought it was rather funny, but I imagine if I did that, people's expectations of what's appropriate on New Year's would not be appropriate, and they would not be happy with me. I also think of my son. The other day we were going to Target, and he said, "Dad, I have a shopping list." And he tells me his shopping list. "Dad, we need gunpowder, a zebra, and $500 of mini muffins." I just look at him and, what? One, I don't think you've ever had a mini muffin. A zebra and gunpowder's dangerous. I think your expectations of what we're getting at Target and the reality of vegetables, milk, and bread are going to collide. And I'm the adult. It's vegetables, milk, and bread. And they don't sell zebras. Or in my expectation every single morning, what I expect on how we're going to get out the door and the reality with a preschooler never matches. Ever. What about expectations of God? For me, a lot of my life has been what I expect of God and what God does are two different things. I graduated in undergrad in the biological sciences, and I expected to go on and teach in that arena until all grad school options shut down inexplicably. I don't know why. My resume was good, quite good. And then I found myself going to seminary. Say, what? How'd I end up here? And I graduated seminary and figured I'd get into a teaching position there, and the job that opened up was a counselor and chaplain to homeless addicts. And God said, go there. What? I haven't worked with this type of clientele, and I've never had a drug problem myself, so I really don't have any street cred with these people. And I didn't. I had to earn credibility through showing love and care. But God took me there. And then when it came time for me to move on, I was looking at graduate schools, not Berkeley, and God said, go to Berkeley. That was the one door that swung wide open. Really, God? Berkeley? I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder against Berkeley, mostly from when I took a tour here at Berkeley when I was looking at undergrads right out of high school. I went on a campus tour, and in the middle of the campus tour, some guy who was completely blitzed on drugs tried to remove his own leg with a wooden stake right in the middle of the campus tour. That was pretty gruesome, and with an experience like that, I am not going to Berkeley. That was my vision of what this place is like. I don't need to do this on a regular basis, and certainly not raise a family here. But God opened the door to Berkeley and said, this is where to go. So I did, and there's been challenges for sure. There's been lots of joys as well. But I figured, okay, I'll knock out my graduate program in theology and science, and then go on to career. And then we had a kid, and the graduate program took a lot longer. And now I'm looking for what jobs are next, and no doors opened yet. I just have to see, okay, God, I'm waiting. What next? Expecting things of God. I'm not sure what. Now I turn to a scripture where there's a little bit of a puzzle. The character of Judas. Judas Iscariot in the Bible. If you look at some of the details around his story, they're very puzzling. If you look at Mark 14:10 through 11, it says Judas went to the chief priests himself, asking, I want to betray Jesus. Can you give me a shot? Now the chief priests were wanting to get rid of Jesus, but it said Judas went to them first. They didn't solicit. And he says, Can I please betray Jesus? And the chief priest says, okay. And, well, I guess we'll pay you for your trouble. They offer to pay him later. Judas went to the chief priests willing to do this for free. Often we hear, well, Judas was greedy. He did have a money problem. You know that from the scripture. But he was willing to do this one for free. Why? It wasn't the money motivation. That came later. And then 3 days later, he completely changes his mind, says, I wish I hadn't done this, throws the money back, and kills himself from remorse. He was enthusiastically going to want to betray Jesus. What did he think was going to happen? Jesus was crucified. How could he have a change of heart so fast when that seemed to be the obvious conclusion of his actions when he first went to the chief priests? I put this whole thing down to false expectations, and we'll explore why. If we look at the cultural context of Israel at the time, Israel was a country under Roman occupation. They did not have self-rule. They were pretty much a satellite of the Roman Empire, a colony. They were colonized. And they pretty much just had to do whatever Rome said, which was particularly a problem because what Rome wanted of them and what they saw themselves as religiously often conflicted. Rome is this pagan country with a pagan religion. They're asking us to do things that violate our code of conduct. And they're influencing our neighbors and our children to act like them. And we're losing our cultural identity. But we have a hope. We have a hope that there will be a Messiah, a figure who will come and free us from this foreign oppression and restore us as a nation. This also explains a curious fact about Palm Sunday. Jesus rides into the city on Palm Sunday. Everyone's laying down palm branches, praising him. And at the end of this particular journey, he looks back over Jerusalem and all the people that had been singing his praises, and Jesus cries. You would think, hey, they're actually recognizing me. They're doing a good thing. But Jesus cries. Why is that? He recognizes that their expectation of him, and the reason why they're praising him, was because they expected him to lead the revolution, which was not God's plan. And so he cries. And that is why 1 week later, they can go from praising Jesus to turning on him and everyone calling for his crucifixion. He didn't do what they expected. He didn't lead the revolution. The Israelites, under this occupation, they had a firm faith in God's promise. We are the chosen people. God will not abandon us. Even under this Roman occupation. We just need to wait. But then God isn't helping. This occupation under Rome just keeps going. If God's not helping us, then there must be something wrong. What's wrong? We must not be following God's law enough. Or following God's law appropriately. There was even an expectation in the culture that if every person in the country followed the Old Testament laws for just one day, God will return and institute peace and justice for all. They just had to do One day. And that explains the Pharisees. The Pharisees were the popular encouragers of this. They were to go around and try to make sure that people were actually following the law. They didn't just have their religious underwear in a bunch for no reason. They felt that it was their mission to try to ensure that everyone followed God's law so that God would return. Who wouldn't want that? The rule of God, peace and justice. And so they were on a mission. Some of those laws, though, were a bit complicated. I'll zero in on Leviticus 11:20. This is a dietary rule regarding bugs. What bugs you can eat and what bugs you cannot eat. Every flying insect that uses 4 legs for walking shall be avoided by you. So don't eat insects that use 4 legs for walking. But the only flying insects with 4 walking legs that you can eat are those with knees that extend above their feet to hop on the ground. Among these, you may only eat members of the red locust family, the yellow locust family, the spotted gray locust family, and the white locust family. All other flying insects with 4 legs must be avoided. I don't imagine many people in ancient Israel were well versed in the science of insects. To sum up, a commentary by Rabbi Joseph Hertz on this particular passage, using my own words, he basically says, how about we just don't eat any bugs and call it good? That way we can make sure that no one accidentally breaks this law. Just no bugs. No bugs. Let's not worry about where the knee is, and if it's a white locust family or a yellow locust, just no bugs. And then you can be sure you'll follow the law. This was a way to, they called this putting a fence around the law, to make sure no one accidentally broke the real laws. You made the laws stricter. Made more laws. And so that way, if you're keeping all these outside laws, you're not going to break the core. So the Pharisees are doing that, trying to keep everyone in line. Jesus appears on the scene and breaks all the rules in terms of their wider ones. And they also figured too, maybe all we need is to step out on faith and challenge Rome. Maybe God is just waiting for us to step out in faith, take up arms, and start the revolution ourselves. There were rebel movements that believed that in Israel. And so if we start the war ourselves, then God will say, that's all you had to do. You stepped out in faith. I'm going to now show up and fight on your side, and you're going to win, and peace and justice will reign. So if there was a war, God will be forced to come to our aid, to his chosen people. We're the chosen people. He's not going to let us get wiped out. And then foreign rule will end. And then Israel would rule all the other nations on behalf of God, creating a holy and just world society. And so Judas, back to Judas, let's look at his name. Do you realize Judas seems to be the only person in the Bible with a last name? Judas Iscariot. Everyone in the Bible either goes by their occupation, Jesus the carpenter, where they're from, Jesus of Nazareth, or whose son they are. So who your dad was. People back then didn't have last names. Or even Jesus Christ. Christ is a job title, meaning Messiah. People only used Christ if they actually believed Jesus was the Messiah. Otherwise they called him Rabbi or Jesus of Nazareth. It's a title, a job title. And so Iscariot was also a job title. It's not a last name. Iscariot, scholars say that this name means of the Sicarii, which to describe them in the ancient world, the Sicarii is a long curved dagger. And these were men who would hide in the crowds. Basically, these were ancient versions of terrorists. and they would sneak up behind a Roman soldier in a crowd with this curved dagger, stick it under his armor, up into the lungs and heart. That's curved, gets right under the armor. And then they would step back with everyone else when he falls and says, "Oh, I don't know what happened." Dagger safely tucked back away in the coat. They figured by killing these Romans, they were working on God's behalf. It might start the war, and then God would show up and everything would be hunky-dory. The Iscariot, Sychary, so Judas was an ancient version of a terrorist trying to start the revolution. A zealot that was even further than the normal zealots would go. And so it seems to me that the character of Judas, if this is the kind of person who he was before Jesus called him to be a disciple, a little side lesson, Jesus doesn't call anyone to be a disciple. But Judas still harbored that old way of being inside his heart. And I could see why he'd betrayed Jesus. And why he would feel so shocked when the Romans did what the Romans always did to revolutionaries. They crucified them. Maybe Judas was figuring, if I betray Jesus, Jesus will finally get around to leading the revolution. Jesus is being a great procrastinator in my book. He keeps walking around and journeying and teaching his lessons. When is he finally going to get down to it and lead the revolution? He's calling himself the Messiah, and this is what I expect the Messiah to do. And he's not doing it. So I am going to give him a little push. Seems to fit why he would go, "Hey, I'll betray Jesus for free. Oh, you're going to give me money? I'll take that too." And then he really was crucified. Oh my goodness. I can't believe this happened. Well, what about, it says Satan entered Judas in the crucifixion story? Satan only works with what's already there. He's not going to come in and give Judas an entirely new thought out of the blue. It has to be something that appeals to you already for it to be a temptation. Judas's failure comes down to a pretty major false expectation of God. One, he misunderstood what the result of being the chosen people meant. He misunderstood. He thought that God's victory meant military victory. 3, he thought he could force God's timing. Okay, God, now's the time. I'm going to give Jesus the push, and everything's going to turn out the way I expect it to. No. Sure, Judas believed in Jesus, but he believed the wrong things about him. It led him to act wrong. And so what was the result of these false expectations? 1, he acted inappropriately. And then when things didn't turn out the way he expected, his whole worldview crumbled. I'm wondering, to commit suicide by hanging? That was an extreme curse back then. You wanted any kind of death, but hanging. Those who hang on a tree are considered cursed. But yet he picked that route. The self-hatred must have been tremendous. He could have just fallen on his sword. That was kind of the more common way to do things. His whole worldview crumbled. And I wonder too, did he lose his faith in God? Emotional devastation. And in his mind, and in the culture's mind, hanging on a tree, that was a way of suicide that they felt would guarantee hell. He committed suicide in that way. In 3 days to go from, I'll betray Jesus, sure, to that. Because of his false expectations. So what do you do when you step out on faith and it seems like God doesn't come through? Or when your most precious request continues to remain unanswered? I prayed for this loved one's healing and they died. When things turn out completely different than your hopes and visions. Even for 360, we've had to move locations twice. We didn't expect that. And moving locations, upheavals in membership, transitions, not quite what we set out, what we expected when we started. What if things turn out different than your hopes and visions, not only for yourself, but the others around you? Look at the other disciples. The other disciples betrayed Jesus too in their own way. Realize as soon as the going got tough, the disciples all ran for the hills. There was just one disciple at the cross. Where was everyone else? Where are my friends? Jesus is probably thinking. The other disciples had their worldview completely crumble. They all went back to what they were doing before they found Jesus. Well, let's go back to fishing. What else are we going to do? And then Peter just flat out denied Jesus. I don't know Jesus. They all betrayed him in their own way. Also, if you look at the Last Supper, when Jesus says, one of you will betray me, the disciples all ask, is it me? Is it me? You wonder, why would they even ask that question? Unless maybe they were harboring some of these thoughts in their own hearts. Did they all feel a little guilty? But why did the other disciples not crumble? Why didn't they head to the tree? They had a willingness to wait. They weren't impatient. It's like, okay, let's try to think about the things that Jesus said. Oh, maybe this is part of God's plan. Let's wait. And it was. Death and resurrection, the death and resurrection of Jesus. That was God's plan. Redemption of humanity through the sacrifice of Jesus. Not a military victory, but a spiritual one. Then why did the disciples not crumble? They let their worldview and their expectations change. So they waited. And basically they were willing to roll with it. Go with the flow. Things didn't quite turn out the way I expected. So maybe I need to listen a little more of what God is expecting now. Where's God leading now? God didn't take me. God took me to basically quite a while working with homeless addicts. I'm not sure what God wants from this, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to listen for God, what He has for me. And there were God did a lot of great things where I got to see people's lives transformed in a very positive way. And, as one of my coworkers told me, God has you here for a reason. There has to be at least someone here that only you can talk to. And I went with that. I was like, I'll take that word and I'll go with it. And then God took me to Berkeley. And there's been a lot of good things to come out of that. But I was willing to let my expectations change. My program took a lot longer with a child. Let my expectations change and enjoy family and being a dad. I figured, okay, God didn't come through the way I wanted. Can I wait? And can I listen to what God has now? What are God's expectations? I'll close in prayer. Dear Lord, I pray that you would just help us listen and see. I know everyone at some point in their lives is going to have a time where what they expect and what you do are completely different things. I know people who have lost their faith, who say all these intellectual reasons, but at their hearts because God has let them down. But God, I pray that all of us will be able to roll with it, to manage when our expectations don't meet reality, but to be open to what wider things you have and what you expect of us and the plans you have and not our own. Commit this to you and pray this in Christ's name.